The conference room on Concordia Prime was massive. It had to be. The Galactic Council represented 47 different species, and many of them were much larger than humans. Ambassador Tai Yang Kim sat in the human delegation's chair, which was positioned near the back of the chamber. It had been in that same spot for 3 years now. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of listening. 3 years of being ignored. Tai Yang adjusted his translation device and prepared to speak again. Beside him, Yuna Park checked her datapad one more time. The numbers were clear. Humanity had contributed more technological advances to the Council in 3 years than most species had in 3 decades. They had shared medical breakthroughs, agricultural techniques, and engine modifications that saved countless lives and resources. Yet here they sat, still listed as a probationary species with no voting rights. "The Council recognizes the human delegation," announced the Arbiter, a floating sphere of energy whose species had no physical form. Tai Yang stood. "Thank you, Arbiter. The United Earth government formally requests full membership status in the Galactic Council. We have met every requirement outlined in the Charter. We have contributed to Council projects, participated in cultural exchanges, and maintained peaceful relations with all member species." He tapped his datapad, and a holographic display appeared above the center of the chamber. Charts and graphs showed humanity's contributions in vivid detail. "Our engineers have improved station efficiency by an average of 38%. Our doctors have reduced medical complications by 22% across Council facilities. Our agricultural methods have increased food production on 17 colony worlds. We ask only for the same representation that every other member species enjoys." The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Councillor Vextar began to laugh. The sound was chittering and harsh, like rocks scraping together. The massive insectoid creature stood on 4 of its 6 legs, the other 2 gesturing dismissively. "Representation." Vextar's translator made the word sound like a joke. "Your species discovered faster-than-light travel only 70 years ago. Some of us have been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. You wage wars on your own planet. You pollute your own air and water. And you want to vote on galactic policy?" Several other counselors made sounds that the translator interpreted as agreement. Tai Yang felt Yuna's hand tighten on her datapad beside him. Councillor Thross of the Mantillian Empire rose next. His species looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, with thick, scaled hide and powerful claws. "The human delegation should understand their position. You are guests here. The fact that we allow you to speak at all is a privilege. Many species wait centuries before being granted full membership." "We are not asking for special treatment," Tai Yang said, keeping his voice level. "We are asking for the same standards applied to others." The Yorlian Collective was granted membership after only 50 years. "The Yorlians did not have nuclear weapons pointed at themselves on their homeworld," Vextar shot back. "They were civilized." Heywan Li, the youngest member of the human delegation, started typing rapidly on her console. She was in charge of communications with Earth and the other human diplomatic posts scattered across Council space. Tai Yang could see her jaw clenched tight. Councillor Dralthos, a serpentine being with mirror-like scales, spoke in a softer tone. "Perhaps we can discuss a path forward. Another century of probationary status, with reviews every decade. If humanity continues to prove itself useful, then perhaps—" "Useful," Tai Yang repeated the word quietly, then louder. "Useful." He looked around the chamber. At the species who used human-designed water recyclers, who relied on human-trained doctors, who flew on ships with human-modified engines, who ate food grown using human agricultural techniques. "We came here 3 years ago seeking partnership," Tai Yang said. His voice was calm, but something in it made several counselors shift uncomfortably. "We offered our knowledge freely. We asked only for respect, the same respect you show each other." "You must earn that respect," Thross rumbled. "We have earned it," Yuna spoke up, standing beside Tai Yang. "You just refuse to acknowledge it because we make you uncomfortable. We advance too fast. We solve problems in ways you don't expect. We don't fit into your comfortable hierarchy where age equals wisdom and size equals power." "Careful, human," Vextar warned. "You are in no position to lecture us." Taeyong gathered his papers slowly. He looked at Yuna, then at Haiwan. Both women nodded. They had discussed this possibility many times. They had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but they had prepared for it. "You're right," Taeyang said. "We're not in a position to lecture you. We're not in a position to do anything here except sit quietly and hope you eventually decide we're worthy of basic dignity." He picked up his datapad and tucked it under his arm. "Where are you going?" the Arbiter asked. "This session is not complete." "Yes, it is," Taeyang replied. "For 3 years, we have negotiated in good faith. We have given you our innovations, our time, and our patience. We have been polite even when you were condescending. We have waited for you to see us as equals." He walked toward the chamber exit. Yuna and Haiwan fell in step beside him. "You are making a mistake," Dralthos called out. "Where will you go? What will you do without council protection and resources?" Taeyang stopped at the doorway. He turned back to face the assembled council. "We're going home," he said. "As for what we'll do, we'll figure that out ourselves. We always have." "This is foolish," Vextar said. "You need us more than we need you." Something flickered across Taeyang's face. It might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "I suppose we'll see," he said. As they walked through the corridors of the council building, Haiwan's console began to flash. She had sent the signal. Across the galaxy, every human ambassador, every trade representative, every engineer, every doctor, every teacher was receiving the same message. "Pack your things. Come home. We're done here." On mining station Epsilon 7, Hyun-Woo Song looked at his console and smiled. He had been maintaining the mining drones for 2 years, making modifications that tripled their efficiency. The station administrator had never once thanked him. Hyun-Woo began backing up his personal files and deleting his modification logs from the station computers. At the Nexus orbital platform, Woo Jin Choi received the message while elbow-deep in a cooling system that no one else could fix. He carefully put his tools away. The system would probably last another month before it failed completely. Not his problem anymore. On the medical station orbiting Centauri 7, Dr. Subin Yoon finished her surgery and removed her gloves. She had just saved a Vorlaxian's life using a technique she had developed herself. She didn't bother explaining the post-operative care to the nursing staff. They had never seemed interested in learning before. By the time Taeyang and his delegation reached their ship, the exodus had begun. Thousands of humans across council space were booking passage home. Some left behind confused colleagues. Others left behind half-finished projects. All of them left behind species who had taken them for granted. The council continued their session without the humans. They moved on to other business, a trade dispute, a border disagreement, the kind of tedious details that had occupied them for centuries. They barely noticed the humans were gone. After all, what difference could one small species really make? They would learn the answer to that question soon enough. 3 months had passed since the human delegation walked out of the council chambers. The building that had housed Earth's embassy on Concordia Prime stood empty now. The windows were dark. The communication arrays were silent. A Vorlaxian real estate agent had already listed it for rent. Inside the council headquarters, life went on as usual, or so it seemed. Councillor Thross was reviewing reports when his assistant brought him a message marked urgent. The Terminus colony was experiencing problems with their water recycling system. He frowned and read further. The system had been operating at 40% above standard efficiency for the past 2 years. Now it was failing. "Contact their engineering team," Thross ordered. "Have them fix it." His assistant's scales rippled with uncertainty. "They tried, Counselor. The human engineer who modified the system left detailed notes, but the team cannot understand them. They attempted to restore the original settings, but the system overloaded." Thross waved a claw dismissively. "Then bring in engineers from another station. This is not a council matter." But it was becoming a council matter. On 12 different stations, water systems were showing similar problems. So were air recyclers, and waste management systems, and power distribution networks. Woo Jin Choi had been very thorough in his work. He had improved systems across dozens of council facilities. but he had also been the only one who fully understood those improvements. The notes he left behind were accurate and complete, but they assumed a level of understanding that most council engineers simply didn't have. At the Axiom Academy, Professor Velroth stood in front of a classroom full of confused students. He was trying to explain advanced quantum mathematics, a subject that Dr. Sujin Han had taught for 2 years. She had made it seem simple. She had found ways to explain concepts that had puzzled scholars for centuries. Velroth had been teaching mathematics for 40 years. He had 3 advanced degrees. But he could not answer half the questions the students were asking, questions that Sujin had routinely addressed in her classes. Questions that seemed basic when she explained them, but were maddeningly complex now that she was gone. "Class dismissed," Velroth finally said. "I need time to review the materials." On mining station Epsilon 7, Administrator Krell was facing a disaster. Production had dropped by 60%. The mining drones that Hyunwoo Song had optimized were breaking down. The repair teams couldn't figure out what was wrong. The drones still functioned, but they were slow and inefficient. Krell sent a message to Earth, then another, then 10 more. All went unanswered. He was not alone. Across the galaxy, administrators, doctors, engineers, and teachers were discovering the same thing. The humans had left holes in their systems, not deliberately, just by their absence. In the council medical facilities, Dr. Thalvin was struggling with a surgical procedure. 6 months ago, Dr. Subin Yoon had shown him a new technique that reduced recovery time by half. He had watched her perform it dozens of times. He had even practiced under her supervision. But now, with a patient on his table and no human doctor to guide him, his hands shook. The technique required precise movements at exactly the right moments. Subin had made it look easy. It was not easy. The patient survived, but the recovery would take weeks instead of days. Thalvin sat in his office afterward, staring at his hands. How had the humans made it look so simple? The council started to notice the pattern during their monthly efficiency review. Across 17 sectors, productivity was down. Medical complications were up, system failures were increasing. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that threatened immediate collapse. Just a slow, steady decline in the quality of everything. "This is temporary," Counselor Vextar insisted during the session. "We managed before the humans arrived. We will adapt to their absence." "But why should we have to adapt?" asked Counselor Cithras, a diplomatic species known for their practical nature. "Why not simply invite them back?" "Absolutely not," Thros growled. "They walked out on us. They showed disrespect to this council. If we go crawling back to them, we show weakness." Dralthos coiled his serpentine body thoughtfully. "Perhaps we could send a low-level envoy. Not an official apology, just an inquiry about their intentions." Several counselors nodded. That seemed reasonable. Pride would be maintained. Communication could be restored. They sent 3 envoys to the Sol system. All 3 were turned away at the border of human space. Not aggressively, not rudely, just firmly. The message was clear. Earth was not interested in talking. What the council didn't know was that Earth had been very busy during those 3 months. On Luna Base, General Yoonji Kwon walked through the new Defense Command Center. Holographic displays showed the entire Sol system in perfect detail. Defensive platforms orbited every major body. Sensor networks monitored every approach vector. Warning systems tracked every ship within light years. "Status?" she asked her second-in-command. "Defense grid at 97% operational capacity," Lieutenant Heejin Ko reported. "All ships are in position. We've completed the upgrades on the Mars shipyards. Production is ahead of schedule." Yoonji nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had learned a lot in 3 years of working with council species. They had learned about advanced propulsion systems, powerful weapons, sophisticated sensors. And they had learned that most council species had grown comfortable and complacent. Not lazy, just comfortable. They relied on systems that had worked for centuries. They didn't innovate much because they didn't need to. Why fix what wasn't broken? Humans, on the other hand, were excellent at fixing things that weren't broken, just to see if they could make them better. "Any contact from the council?" Yoonji asked. 3 envoy ships in the past week, Hyejin confirmed. All were given the same response. We're not interested in dialogue at this time. Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Back on Concordia Prime, the worry was indeed growing. New reports came in daily. A colony world was experiencing crop failures. The agricultural techniques the humans had introduced were failing without proper maintenance. The colonists were trying to recreate the methods from written guides, but something was wrong. The humans had understood soil chemistry and crop rotation in ways the colonists couldn't quite grasp. Then came the first attack. The Caldrith Raiders had been operating in Council space for decades. They were pirates and scavengers, hitting remote stations and poorly defended colonies. They were a nuisance, nothing more. Council defense forces had kept them contained to the outer rim. But when the Caldriths hit a Mantillian supply depot, something was different. They bypassed the security systems with ease. They struck exactly where the defenses were weakest. They extracted valuable cargo and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The defense coordinator for that sector stared at the damage reports in disbelief. How did they know? He wondered aloud. How did they know exactly where to hit? His assistant pulled up the security logs. Sir, these systems were upgraded 8 months ago. The modifications were designed by engineer Ji-Hoon Nam, human. The coordinator felt something cold settle in his stomach. Show me all the modifications he made. The list was extensive. Ji-Hoon had improved the security grid across the entire sector. He had plugged holes, reinforced weak points, and integrated systems that had previously operated independently. But he had also been the only one who fully understood those systems. And now, he was gone. The Caldriths struck again 3 days later. Then again. Then again. Every time they seemed to know exactly where to hit. Every time, Council forces arrived too late. After the 5th attack, Councillor Vexitar called an emergency session. We need to contact Earth, he said. The words clearly pained him. We need their engineers back, their security specialists, their help, Cithras finished quietly. We need their help. The council sat in uncomfortable silence. 3 months ago, they had dismissed humanity as primitives who should be grateful for the chance to serve. Now they were realizing that humanity had been serving. Just not in the way the council had thought. The humans hadn't been dependent on the council. The council had been dependent on the humans. And they had never even noticed until it was too late. The Caldrith attack on the Mantillian colony of Korseth was the worst yet. 3,000 civilians dead. The planetary shield had failed in exactly 7 places simultaneously. The defense platforms had powered down at precisely the wrong moment. It was surgical. It was devastating. Admiral Krath stood in the ruins of the command center and tried to understand what had happened. His entire career had been built on protecting Mantillian space. He had trained for decades. He knew every protocol, every defensive strategy in the Council military handbook. None of it had worked. How? He asked the surviving technician, a young Mantillian named Droth. How did they get through? Droth pulled up what was left of the system logs on a damaged console. Sir, the planetary shield was operating on a modified grid pattern. It was installed 2 years ago by a human engineering team led by someone named Jae-Sung Lee. Krath's jaw tightened. Humans? Yes, sir. The modifications improved shield efficiency by 42%. But there are gaps in the coverage, small ones. 7 specific points where the shield generators create overlapping fields. If someone knew exactly where those points were and struck them all at once, the entire shield would collapse, Krath finished. He slammed his fist on the damaged console. The humans knew. They knew the weaknesses they were creating. Sir, I don't think they were weaknesses, Droth said carefully. I think they were trade-offs. The improved efficiency probably required those gaps. It was still better than what we had before, but only if the humans were here to maintain and protect the system, Krath wanted to argue. He wanted to blame the humans for sabotage or treachery, but the truth was simpler and more painful. The humans had improved council systems. They had just never explained all the details. Why would they? The council had never been interested in understanding. They had only been interested in results. Now they were paying for that lack of curiosity. On Earth, in the Strategic Operations Center deep below the Pacific Ocean, Daeun Shin watched the intelligence reports with no expression on her face. She had been tracking Kaldrith movements for 3 years. She knew their patterns, their capabilities, their leadership structure. "They're good," she said to her team, "better than the Council ever gave them credit for." "Should we warn the Council?" asked one of her analysts. "No," Da-un replied. "They have all the tools they need to figure this out themselves. They just need to actually use them." What the Council didn't understand was that the Kaldriths had always been this capable. They had always been this smart. But when humans were maintaining Council security systems, the Kaldriths couldn't exploit the vulnerabilities that every complex system inevitably had. Jihoon Nam and his team had been constantly monitoring, updating, and patching those weaknesses. Not because they were ordered to, because they were good at their jobs, because they cared about doing things right. Now those patches were degrading. The monitoring had stopped. The updates weren't happening. And the Kaldriths were taking full advantage. Back at Concordia Prime, the Council convened another emergency session. This time, the chamber was filled with fear instead of arrogance. "The Rix Collective has begun raiding our shipping lanes," reported Admiral Korvax, a four-armed species known for their military prowess. "They're hitting supply convoys. Our response time is 40% slower than it was 6 months ago." "Why?" demanded Thros. "What has changed?" Korvax's four hands clenched in frustration. "Our tactical coordination systems are failing. The software that integrated our different fleet communication protocols was designed by human programmers. It's still running, but it's developing errors. Our engineers can't find the bugs. The code is too complex." Counselor Sithris spoke up. "I've been compiling reports from across all Council sectors. The pattern is clear. Everywhere humans worked, we are now experiencing problems. Not catastrophic failures. Just degradation." She pulled up a massive holographic display. Red markers indicated problem areas. They covered the entire Council space like a disease. Water treatment facilities operating at reduced efficiency. Medical procedures taking longer and having more complications. Agricultural output declining. Manufacturing defects increasing. Security vulnerabilities multiplying. And our military response capabilities are deteriorating. All because one species left? Vextar's voice was incredulous. "Not just one species," corrected Intelligence Director Velmara. "One species that had integrated itself into every aspect of Council operations. They didn't ask permission. They didn't make announcements. They just saw problems and fixed them. They saw inefficiencies and improved them. For 3 years, they made us better. And we never noticed." Dralthos uncoiled his serpentine form. "We must contact Earth again. Send our most skilled diplomats. Offer concessions." "Offer them what?" Thros growled. "We have nothing they want. They left because we couldn't give them the one thing they asked for. Respect." The word hung in the air like an accusation. Counselor Sithris made the decision. "I will go to Earth myself. I will speak to them directly. I will apologize if necessary." "The Council does not apologize," Vextar protested. "Then the Council will continue to deteriorate," Sithris replied coldly. "Choose." 2 weeks later, Sithris arrived at the edge of human space with a small diplomatic vessel. She submitted a formal request to enter the Sol system and speak with Earth's government. Then she waited. 3 days passed. Her crew grew restless. Finally, a response came. A single word transmitted in text. "No." Sithris recorded a message. "I am Counselor Sithris. I come alone, without military escort, to speak with Ambassador Tae Yang Kim. I wish to discuss the current situation and find a path forward. I acknowledge that the Council made mistakes. Please grant me the opportunity to speak with you." Another 2 days of silence. Then a different message. "The United Earth Government thanks Counselor Sithris for her message. We are not interested in rejoining the Galactic Council. We are not interested in negotiating new terms. We are building our own future now. We wish the Council well, but we have nothing more to discuss." Sithris felt something she hadn't experienced in her long diplomatic career. Helplessness. They weren't even angry. They weren't demanding concessions or apologies. They were just done. She tried one more time. Then tell me this. The attacks on Council space, the Caldriths, the Rix Collective, they're exploiting vulnerabilities in systems that humans designed. Is Earth coordinating with them? The response came quickly this time, and Cithris could almost hear the cold amusement in it. No, we don't need to. You're doing a fine job of destroying yourselves. We just stopped preventing it. The message continued. Every system we improved had weaknesses. Every complex system does. We monitored those weaknesses. We patched them. We adapted to new threats. Not because you asked us to, because it needed to be done. Now you'll have to do it yourselves. Good luck. Cithris returned to Concordia Prime with the bitter news. Earth would not help them. Earth would not even talk to them. Then we fight, Thros declared. We survived before humans arrived. We'll survive after they left. But even as he spoke, reports came in of more attacks, more failures, more problems. The Council fleet scrambled to respond to 3 simultaneous crises. They were spread too thin. Their coordination was poor. Ships that should have worked together as a unified force operated like separate entities with different languages and protocols, which, without the humans to bridge those gaps, was exactly what they were. Admiral Jiwoo Kang watched from her observation post at the edge of Council space. Her orders from Earth were clear. Observe, record, but do not intervene. It was hard to watch, not because she felt sorry for the Council, but because she had been a soldier her entire life. And soldiers helped people. That was the point. But sometimes, she reminded herself, the best way to help someone was to let them learn their own lessons. Even if those lessons were painful, especially if those lessons were painful. 6 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced its worst crisis in 2 centuries. It started with the Yorlian Collective announcing their withdrawal from Council membership. The species that had once been held up as an example of civilized cooperation simply packed up and left. We joined the Council for protection and prosperity, the Yorlian Prime Minister stated in her departure message. We are receiving neither. We will seek our own path forward. 3 days later, the Centauri Union followed. Then, the Kelvari Confederation. Species that had been loyal council members for generations were abandoning ship. Councillor Thros raged in the council chambers. Cowards, all of them. They flee at the first sign of difficulty. The first sign? Councillor Cithris replied quietly. Thros, we've lost 17 defensive positions. 12 colonies have been raided. Food production is down 30% across 15 sectors. Medical facilities are overwhelmed. Our fleet can barely coordinate a simple patrol, much less defend against organized attacks. This isn't the first sign of difficulty. This is a catastrophe. In the Strategic Command Center, Fleet Commander Torvis stared at tactical displays that showed the deteriorating situation. Red alerts dotted the map like a disease. His fleet of over 800 ships, the largest military force in the galaxy, was losing to pirates and raiders that should have been easy to defeat. Get me status reports from all sectors, he ordered. The reports that came back were damning. The battleship Resolute had engine problems. The maintenance crews couldn't replicate the modifications that human engineers had made. The ship could barely reach 70% of its previous speed. The carrier Dominion had tactical computer failures. The integration software that allowed different species systems to work together kept crashing. The human programmers who wrote it had left behind documentation, but it assumed knowledge that Council programmers simply didn't have. The destroyer fleet in Sector 9 reported weapon system malfunctions. The targeting arrays were producing errors that no one could explain. The human technician who had calibrated them was named Dong-Hyun Park, and he was back on Earth probably not thinking about them at all. Torvis pulled up the communication logs and sent a priority message to Earth. He had sent 43 messages over the past 6 months. None had been answered. He sent the 44th anyway. This is Fleet Commander Torvis of the Galactic Council Navy. We require immediate technical assistance. Name your price. We will pay whatever you ask. Please respond. The response came 6 hours later. It was not what he hoped for. Fleet Commander Torvis, this is General Yoon-ji Kwon of the United Earth Defense Force. Your message has been received. Earth is not offering technical assistance to the Galactic Council at any price. We suggest you consult the documentation your human personnel left behind. We also suggest you start training your own people to understand the systems they've been relying on. Good luck. Torvis wanted to throw his console across the room. Instead, he forwarded the message to the Council with a simple note. They will not help. The breaking point came at the Battle of Sector Theta 9. The Kaldrith Raiders had gathered their largest fleet in decades, over 30 ships. They were attacking a major Council supply hub that served 17 colonies. The Council responded with overwhelming force. 40 ships from 3 different fleets converged on the sector. It should have been an easy victory. The Council had superior numbers, superior firepower, and superior technology. What they didn't have was coordination. The Mantillian fleet arrived first and engaged the Kaldriths immediately. Their admiral expected the Vorlaxian fleet to provide covering fire from their position, but the Vorlaxians were still calibrating their weapon systems. By the time they opened fire, the Mantillians had already taken heavy damage. The Centauri reinforcements came in from the wrong angle, partially blocking the Mantillian retreat path. Ships that should have been working as a unified force were getting in each other's way. The tactical coordination network that used to prevent these problems was malfunctioning. Commands were delayed. Status updates were garbled. Ship positions were showing incorrectly on tactical displays. The Kaldriths exploited every mistake. They focused fire on damaged ships. They struck at formation gaps. They retreated when pressed, then struck again when Council ships lost coordination. 3 hours into the battle, 13 Council ships had been destroyed. Another 10 were crippled. The Kaldriths had lost only 4 ships. Fall back, Admiral Krath finally ordered. All ships, retreat to Rally Point Gamma. The retreat was chaotic. Ships scattered in different directions. 2 Mantillian destroyers collided while trying to withdraw. The Kaldriths pursued, destroying 3 more Council ships before the remnants of the fleet finally jumped to faster-than-light speed. In the aftermath, Krath sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. He had just lost 23 ships to an enemy that should have been crushed. His entire career, his reputation, his pride, all shattered in a single afternoon. The footage of the battle spread across the galaxy. The mighty Galactic Council, defeated by pirates. Species that had relied on Council protection for centuries began to panic. If the Council couldn't defeat raiders, what would happen when a real threat emerged? On Luna Base, Admiral Jiwoo Kang watched the battle recording with her senior staff. Analysis, she requested. The individual crews are competent, her tactical officer reported, but they can't work together. The Mantillians fly aggressive formations. The Vorlaxians prefer defensive positioning. The Centauri use wide spacing. Without the integration software that humans maintained, they're just 40 ships flying near each other, not a unified fleet. Could we fix their systems? Someone asked. In about 6 weeks if they gave us full access, the tactical officer replied. But we'd need their cooperation. And from what I understand, that's not happening. Jiwoo nodded. The general has been clear. We observe only. This is their problem to solve. But watching was getting harder. Jiwoo had served in joint operations with some of those Council species. She had eaten meals with Mantillian officers. She had trained alongside Vorlaxian pilots. They weren't friends, exactly, but they weren't strangers either. Now they were dying because they were too proud to admit they needed help. Or more accurately, because the Council leadership was too proud. Back at Concordia Prime, the Council held an emergency session. The chamber that had once been filled with confident voices was now thick with fear and anger. We must negotiate with Earth, Councillor Sithris insisted. Not from a position of strength, we have none. From a position of honesty. We tell them the truth, we need them. We were wrong to dismiss them. We ask for their return. Never, Vextar spat. We cannot show such weakness. Other species will lose all faith in Council authority. What authority? Sithris shot back. We can't defend our own space. We can't maintain our own systems. 3 species have already left. How much more authority do you think we can lose? Thros stood. his massive form dominating the chamber. If we admit we cannot function without humans, we admit we are not worthy of leadership. Better to struggle and survive on our own than to grovel before a species we rejected. You mean better to let thousands die than to admit a mistake, Scythrus said coldly. The chamber erupted in arguments. Species divided along old lines. Some wanted to contact Earth immediately. Others insisted on maintaining their pride. The council that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was tearing itself apart. On Earth, Ambassador Tae-Yang Kim watched the live broadcast of the council session. He felt no satisfaction in their struggle, only a deep weariness. "They're falling apart," Unipark said beside him. "Yes," Tae-Yang agreed, "but they're still not listening. They're still arguing about pride and authority. They're not talking about what's best for their people. Should we intervene?" Tae-Yang was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Not yet. If we step in now, nothing changes. They'll take our help, stabilize, and then go right back to treating us as useful tools. They need to understand, truly understand, what partnership means. How many have to die before they learn that lesson? I don't know," Tae-Yang admitted. "But I know if we teach it too early, they won't remember it. This has to hurt. It has to cost them something real. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything." It was a cold calculation, and Tae-Yang hated himself a little for making it. But he had spent 3 years being dismissed and patronized. He had watched his people be treated as servants rather than equals. If the council wanted humanity back, they would have to understand that humans were not coming back to serve. They would come back as partners, or not at all. 8 months after humanity walked out of the Galactic Council, Counselor Scythrus did something no council leader had done in 200 years. She went to Earth alone, without guards or ceremony, and she waited at Luna Station for someone to speak with her. Ambassador Tae-Yang Kim made her wait 3 days. Not out of cruelty, but because Earth's government was genuinely busy. They were building something new, and it required careful planning. When he finally arrived at the meeting room, Scythrus was surprised by what she saw. Tae-Yang looked tired, but there was a calmness to him that hadn't been there before. He was no longer a supplicant hoping for approval. He was a leader who had already moved on. "Counselor Scythrus," he greeted her formally. "You requested this meeting. I'm listening." Scythrus had prepared a speech. She had diplomatic phrases ready, careful words that would preserve some measure of council dignity. But looking at Tae-Yang, she realized none of that would work. He didn't want political language. He wanted honesty. "We were wrong," she said simply. "The council was wrong about humanity. We treated you as servants when you were offering partnership. We dismissed your contributions and denied you respect. And now we are paying the price for that arrogance." Tae-Yang said nothing, just waited for her to continue. 17 species have left the council. Our defensive capabilities have collapsed. Our infrastructure is failing. We cannot coordinate our own fleets. We cannot maintain the systems that keep our people alive. Scythrus's voice was steady, but there was real pain in it. Thousands have died. Thousands more will die if this continues. "And you want humanity to come back and fix it," Tae-Yang said. "Yes," Scythrus admitted. "The council is prepared to offer full membership, equal voting rights, and representation on all major committees. We will formally apologize for our past treatment. We will—" "No," Tae-Yang interrupted quietly. Scythrus felt something cold settle in her chest. "Please, I understand your anger, but innocent people are suffering. Children are going hungry on colony worlds. Patients are dying in medical facilities. If not for the council, then for them." "I'm not saying no to helping people," Tae-Yang clarified. "I'm saying no to rejoining your council." He stood and walked to the window, where Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. "For 3 years, we tried to join your system. We played by your rules. We waited patiently. We proved ourselves over and over again. And you treated us like we should be grateful for the opportunity to serve you." "I know, Let me finish," Tae-Yang said, not unkindly. "When we left, we realized something. We don't want to be part of your council. We don't want to join a system where species are ranked by age or military power, where some voices matter more than others, where respect is something you earn by waiting centuries." He turned back to face her. We're building something different. We call it the Terran Commonwealth. It's a federation where every species is equal, where contribution matters more than how long you've been in space, where respect is given freely, not earned through submission. Sithris felt hope flicker. Then let us join. Let the Council species join your Commonwealth. Not the Council, Taeyang said firmly. Individual species, yes, but not as the Council. That system is broken. We won't preserve it. Behind Taeyang, the door opened and several others entered. General Yunji Quan, Admiral Jiwoo Kang, Dr. Junwoo An, and a surprise, representatives from the Yorlian Collective, the Kelvari Confederation, and 4 other species that had left the Council. These are our partners, Taeyang explained. Species that were tired of the old hierarchy. They've joined the Commonwealth as equals. We share technology freely. We defend each other. We make decisions together, with each species having an equal voice regardless of size or military strength. Sithris looked at the assembled representatives. The Yorlian delegate, a woman named Peloria, spoke up. The Council treated us well enough, but we were always aware of our place. The humans offered something better, true equality. We've already established defensive agreements, Admiral Jiwoo added. 15 systems are now under Commonwealth protection. We're training integrated fleet groups that actually know how to work together, not 40 ships flying near each other, but actual coordinated forces. Dr. Junwoo pulled up a holographic display. We're sharing medical techniques, agricultural methods, and engineering practices with all Commonwealth members. No restrictions. No probationary periods. If you contribute, you benefit. Simple as that. We're also, General Eunji said with a slight smile, patching all those security vulnerabilities the Council is struggling with. For Commonwealth members only, of course. Sithris understood the implicit message. The help was available, but not on the Council's terms. So our choice is to dissolve the Council and join your Commonwealth as separate species, she asked. Or continue as you are, Taeyang said. We're not demanding anything. We're not threatening anyone. We're simply offering an alternative. Species can join if they want, or they can stay with the Council. It's a free choice. But without human support, the Council will continue to decline. Probably, Taeyang agreed, but that's not our responsibility anymore. We tried to help from inside the system. We were rejected. Now we're building outside it. If Council species want to join us, they're welcome. If they don't, we wish them well. Sithris returned to Concordia Prime with news that was somehow both hopeful and devastating. Humanity would help, but only on their terms. The Council could not continue as it was. The debate that followed was fierce. Councillor Thross argued for independence until the end. Vextar insisted the Council could survive without humans. But Councillor Dralthos, looking at casualty reports and system failure notices, finally spoke the truth everyone knew. We are dying, he said. Slowly, perhaps, but certainly. Pride is a poor substitute for survival. Over the next month, 18 former Council species formally dissolved their Council membership and joined the Terran Commonwealth. They came not as supplicants but as partners, signing treaties that guaranteed equal representation and shared responsibility. The Mantillian Empire, proud and stubborn, held out the longest. But when Caldrith raiders destroyed 3 more colonies, Admiral Krath finally sent a message to Earth. Not to the Council, to General Yunji Quan directly. We were wrong, the message said. We request the opportunity to join the Terran Commonwealth as equal partners, if you will have us. 3 days later, Mantillian delegates arrived at Luna Station. Admiral Jiwoo Kang, who had served alongside Mantillian officers, greeted them personally. Welcome, she said. Let's talk about building something better together. Not every Council species joined. Some formed a smaller coalition, determined to maintain their traditional hierarchy. Earth accepted this gracefully. The Commonwealth didn't demand universal membership. It simply offered a better option. 6 months after Sethris's visit to Luna Station, Ambassador Tai Yang Kim stood in the newly completed Commonwealth Hall on Mars. Representatives from 43 species filled the chamber, not ranked by power or age, but seated in a circle where every voice carried equal weight. He thought about that day in the council chambers when he had walked out. How Vextar had asked where they would go, what they would do without council protection. Now he knew the answer. They had built something new, something better. Not through conquest or threats, but by refusing to accept anything less than respect. Una Park stood beside him, watching the representatives debate their first major policy decision. The discussion was loud and chaotic. 43 different viewpoints all demanding to be heard. It was messy and complicated and slow. It was also beautiful. "Do you think the council species who stayed away will ever join?" Una asked. "Some will," Taeyang replied. "When they're ready. When they understand that partnership means everyone gets a voice, not just the strongest or oldest. And until then? Until then, we build, we grow, we show them that there's a better way." He smiled slightly. "We've always been good at showing people new possibilities." In a small office in the Commonwealth Hall, Haewon Lee was processing membership applications from 3 more species. In the medical wing, Dr. Subin Yoon was teaching her techniques to doctors from 7 different species. In the engineering bay, Woojin Choi was collaborating with alien engineers on a new station design. Humans were doing what they had always done, solving problems, sharing knowledge, building connections. But now they were doing it as equals, as respected partners, as the foundation of something new. The Galactic Council had wanted humanity to join their system. Instead, humanity had built a better one. And species from across the galaxy were lining up to be part of it. Counselor Vextar, watching from the remnants of the old council, finally understood what had happened. Humanity hadn't needed the council's permission or approval. They had never needed it. They had simply needed to be treated with respect. When the council couldn't provide that, humanity had created a place where respect was the foundation, not a privilege. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. On Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, retired Ambassador Taeyang Kim's father watched the news broadcasts about the Commonwealth's continued growth. His son had done what seemed impossible. He had walked away from power and created something greater. "Proud of you, son," the old man said to the screen, though his son couldn't hear him. "You showed them what humans are really capable of." And across the stars, in 43 different systems, people of dozens of species were learning the same lesson. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their refusal to accept a universe where some people mattered more than others. They had quit the peace talks, walked away from the table, and built a better one. And the galaxy was better for it.